Putin doesn't want peace. He wants victory. This is hard for some of us Westerners to understand. Doesn't everybody want peace? No, everybody doesn't want peace. Putin wants victory, and he's up to probably 1 million casualties now that he sacrificed, but he thinks that's okay. His legacy will still be great. Will still be revered if he restores the Russian Empire.
Clifford May is a founder and president of the Foundation for Defence of Democracies in Washington, D.C. Clifford, hello, good evening.
Good evening to you.
It's not gone well, has it, Clifford?
What's that?
It's not gone well, has it?
It could have gone worse. I was concerned that Trump could come out of there and say, we've concluded a deal, and a deal would have been bad. And I'd much rather have no deal than a bad deal. And that's what we have, is no deal here. And Zelensky happily is going to Washington and is going to see Trump on Monday, and that's going to be challenging for him. But I'm hopeful for him. I would have preferred that there had been some movement towards simply a ceasefire, nothing more than that, with negotiations to follow. That's what certainly I had been urging, and a lot of other people I know who had been urging. And for some reason, I think it looks like Putin persuaded Trump, no, let's go for a comprehensive peace deal. I don't see how that's feasible in the short run. And if it's in the long run, that there's talk going on while a lot of Ukrainians are being killed, and a lot of Russian soldiers, too. I don't think that bothers Putin overly. I think that's not a great way forward.
How did that happen?
Well, who knows? The two men were together for 3 hours talking, and we don't really know what was said between them. Putin can be very persuasive. He has been in the past to lots of people, Americans, to Europeans. I can remember years ago talking to a senior German diplomat saying, why are you getting all your energy from Russia? You're becoming dependent on Putin. They said, no, Cliff, you don't understand. Putin is dependent on our euros. It's working out just fine. We know what we're doing here. And even now, I would say it's very important that the Europeans stop helping to fund Putin's war effort. I do hope that President Trump, as he has suggested, will increase sanctions, secondary sanctions in particular, on Russia. What that means, just so everybody understands, is you go to the buyers like India, who has been sanctioned, and you say, if you continue to buy oil or other energy products from Russia, funding this war effort, you're not going to do business with the United States, so make up your mind. President Trump has the cards to play. He has threatened to play them. He hasn't played them yet. I haven't given up hope on that.
But he hasn't only not played them, though, Clifford. He's moved closer to Putin's position.
We're going to see what's going to happen. He has, in the sense that I thought he had been persuaded that he had demanded a ceasefire. Zelensky had agreed to a ceasefire. Now it was imperative that Putin also agreed to a ceasefire, even 30 days. Putin evidently said, no, you don't want that. Ceasefires, they end and then we go back to war. Let's see if we can get something real. The problem is that Putin, in his speech, and it was a speech he gave in Anchorage, Alaska, he said he said this before, we have to work on the root causes. Well, what are the root causes? I think we know what the root causes are. The root cause of this conflict is that Ukraine is an independent, sovereign, and free nation, not part of the Russian Empire. And this has been, if you think about it, Trump's mission for a long time to restore the Russian Empire with himself as Tsar. It goes back at least, I would say, to 2008, when he carved two territories off Georgia. Georgia is now a nation with a ruling political party that is compromised by Moscow. That's very bad. Putin is waging a hybrid war in Moldova. I think many Americans don't know much about the two countries I'm talking to you about, but you do, and I think your listeners in UK and Europe do. And then, of course, in 2014, that's the first time that Putin took a real big bite out of this particular salami, when he took Crimea and annexed it. And he also began to put his troops, even with fake uniforms, into the eastern section of Ukraine known as Donbass, and they've been there ever since. So now he has about 20% of the country. I think it's very important, and there's a real important role for Europeans to play here. This is not all for Trump to do. This is Europe we're talking about. The Europeans have to continue to supply Zelensky with weaponry. They can buy it from the United States. They have to cut off the funding as best they can. The Europeans have $300 billion in Russian funds. I would say those funds should not just be frozen, they should now be utilized to rearm Ukraine and for reparations to Ukraine. This is important and can be done by the Europeans. This is your neck of the woods. And Trump wants you to be leading on this, and I think you absolutely should and must.
Do we have to reassess, Clifford, this notion that Donald Trump is a great deal maker?
Maybe it's possible. I don't think that's the key question to be asking. He's done well on several other conflicts around the world up to over the past few months that he's been in office. He would like to do well on this one. I don't think he's understood Putin as well as he should. I don't know that he understood the symbolism behind Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister and factotum of Putin, walking into this summit wearing a shirt that said in Cyrillic USSR. What was he trying to communicate? I think I know. I think you can guess. He's saying Ukraine was a Soviet possession. Russia has inherited it and should have that should have Ukraine as well. It's important to recognize that Putin doesn't want peace. He wants victory. This is hard for some of us Westerners to understand. Doesn't everybody want peace? No, everybody doesn't want peace. Putin wants victory, and he's up to probably 1 million casualties now that he sacrificed, but he thinks that's okay. His legacy will still be great. Will still be revered if he restores the Russian Empire. Part of the problem is that restoring the Russian Empire means a lot more. One of the things that's important to recognize about Putin is he's been putting up monuments to Stalin in the metro in Moscow, all around the country. Not because he's a communist, but he is a Stalinist in this sense. He knows that the Russian Empire was at its largest when it was the Soviet Empire under Stalin after World War II, when there were all the satellites of Eastern and Central Europe and in that possession. That's and also because Stalin was brutal and ruthless and wanted to get his way. Very important for us all to recognize who Putin is, not least Trump, but not only Trump, let me say.
Okay. And you talk about legacy, and forgive me for sort of labouring the point on Trump, but this is the issue I want to probe with you, Clifford, which is that it could very well be that on Trump's watch here, Europe's borders are redrawn by force. I mean, skipping a ceasefire, skipping the negotiations, straight to a peace deal, this pivot, and also the fact that Trump himself has said that Ukraine will have to cede some territory, does allude to that happening. How can that be defended by the people who defend him?
It's not my job to defend the people who defend him, even though I can see that's the way you want to go.
Well, I want to understand. I want to understand it. Yeah, I do.
I'm going to try to explain to you as best I possibly can. And let me say this. I think it would be dreadful if Putin actually extends the borders of the Russian Empire. And it's not just a nation state. It is an empire. We can talk about that. I would say right now, Belarus is a vassal state. Chechnya, Tajikistan, those are colonies of Russia. Don't want to see that happen. But by the way, it is not enough for Europe to say, we would hate to see that happen in Europe. And my God, why isn't Trump saving us from that? Think hard about what you can do. You have a GDP in Western Europe that's about the same as that of the U.S. You don't do as much militarily because you've relied on the U.S. for security and protection for more than 50 years. And now pledges have been made at the last NATO meeting. Very good that you're going to get up a few percent. And that's very important. But you really do have a responsibility. The main point here is not really what kind of deal maker Trump is. After all, if that's the way you look at it, that's kind of sad for Europe, don't you think?
Possibly, but he has all of the power, all of the possibility, Clifford.
No, you have power too. Well, yeah, Europe has power. I don't want to hear that Europe is so weak. What can Europe do? No, Europe can't do anything for itself.
No, I agree, and I think
poor.
No, listen, I agree with that notion. And look, I think if we can say anything, it is the fact that Europe has woken up to that. They have committed to more spending on defence. The problem is it takes a long time to get there, and right now we have an aggressor.
It doesn't take a long time to cut off all the energy that you buy of right now.
No, exactly, and again, look, I mean, you look at Germany as being one of the main sources of one of the main purchasers of that power, and they've done a lot to try to detach too. We have tried across Europe to uncouple ourselves from Russia. All of those things are absolutely valid. They're all heard. They're all being actioned. But the truth of the matter is that sort of security guarantee takes potentially decades to establish, and there is an aggressor in our back garden, and the person that has the power and the possibility to make a massive difference went into the negotiation of his life yesterday and blinked.
What you need to understand is that people like me are doing our best to urge and advise President Trump to do more to make sure that Ukraine does not become the prey of a terrible predator. We're doing all we can. But my job is not to defend him, is not to defend those who defend him. It's not to get into fights about his legacy or his book. My job, I worry about 4 countries or 4 democratic societies that are at risk right now. Ukraine is one. It's in a terrible war. Another is Israel. Britain doesn't really back up Israel. Britain is saying, oh, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We are going to recognize a Palestinian state if there is no ceasefire by the time of the General Assembly. Hamas says, great, then there'll be no ceasefire. Good work, Prime Minister Starmer. Great work, Macron. Great work to the German Chancellor, who has cut off weapons. I'm also worried about Taiwan because I know the Taiwanese don't want to be ruled by the Communist Party in Beijing. I'm also worried about South Korea. Why? Because North Korea is giving weapons and soldiers to Putin, and in exchange, he's getting something, and that will be used against South Korea. It will be used against Japan. By the way, you guys should worry about this too when you're not worrying about the legacy of Trump and the people who, oh my God, are they defending him? I can't believe that. I'm outraged. I need to clutch my pearls.
Okay. Clifford, lovely to talk to you tonight. I appreciate your insight and your take on that. Thank you so much.